foreigners are censoring wokeness. And is that a good thing? Well, I should probably say it's a good thing. I should probably say it's not a good thing, sorry.
Well, what do you mean by they're censoring it?
Well, by literal censorship, right? And, I mean, I'm not pro-censorship, but I'm also not pro-Nazi ideology undermining liberal democracies. And so I can understand why they're looking at the West and saying, nope, that's just not happening here.
I mean, I can't blame them, yeah.
Can't blame them at all. Sorry, we're not having it. We're not having it at all. So, beginning this with Boris's view on wokeness, which I'm going to be a bit uncharitable here. Because he was being asked whether, he is Joe Biden woke a few months back, and he gave a blustering response because obviously Biden was recently installed in January, and he didn't want to upset the apple cart, as it were. And so he was like, I can't comment on that. What I know is a fervent believer in the transatlantic alliance, and that's a great thing, and a believer in a lot of the things we want to achieve together, so insofar as there's nothing wrong with being woke. Well, there is. There are lots of things.
This wasn't the only mess up of that period as well. He then went on to say, what was it? We need to build back better in a greener...
gender-neutral, more feminine way.
Which makes no sense. Those are contradictory terms.
Yes.
But the woke language was taken on for Biden's visit. Which,
yeah, of course it was.
Most charitable interpretation is he's just taking this on for a better trade deal, but...
Yeah. There's always the lingering suspicion with Boris that he's a bit too lefty. Which is disappointing. But anyway, so there is something wrong with wokeness, obviously, and I would suggest that the first thing is banning To Kill a Mockingbird from schools. I mean, why would you do this? Like, this is the classic anti-racist text that English school children, I was taught when I was a kid, to explain that, look, there is an inherent injustice in racism and a racist society, and it's a genuinely, heroic story. It's a moving story on how, Boo Radley doesn't get hung or something like this. And, I mean, defended by Atticus Finch, and you have to go through the reasoning and the rationale of it. It's been a long time since I've read it, so you have to forgive me if I can't remember the exact details. But I have very fond memories of the book, and I think it's useful. But, of course, it's being deplatformed from an Edinburgh school, James Gillespie High School in Edinburgh, because it has apparently a dated approach to race, as in it promotes a white saviour narrative.
Should correct you when you said it's an anti-racist thing. It's not. It's a non-racist thing.
Wow.
Not anti-racist.
Well,
which is their
fine. But it's a work against racism, and to show the injustice of it, and it was good. The seminal text is to be excluded from classrooms in Edinburgh as this high school because it's as part of wider plans to decolonize the curriculum.
Sorry, there being a white guy at all is the colonization.
Yes, that's literally it. Just to be clear, you can't decolonize Edinburgh because Scotland, part of the United Kingdom, was the place colonizing other places. It wasn't colonized. So decolonizing a place that was not colonized means abolishing the native culture. That's what it means. So the proposals are part of this wider initiative to decolonize the curriculum, with greater emphasis placed on works from non-white authors with less Western-centric viewpoints to better reflect a diverse range of experiences. So, colonizing. That's what they're doing. They're not decolonizing, they are colonizing Scottish education system as if Scotland isn't full of Scots, which, as Edward Longshanks rightly pointed out in Braveheart, is exactly the problem with Scotland. And so these people are getting to work on that.
Well, these people have the same opinion.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. They've got the Edward Longshanks opinion on this. Now, I mean, speaking as an Englishman, I actually do think that if there's one proper place for the Scottish people, it's in Scotland, and we should build a wall. Rebuild Hadrian's Wall. Sorry, Vicky. But the point is, you can't decolonize Scotland. You can only colonize Scotland. Calvin Robinson came out with a good statement about this, saying we can contextualize them. Teachers are not just reading the books; they are teaching English literature. We can talk about the use of the N-word and why that's not appropriate for anyone to use. I think it's ridiculous to cancel the books because of it. It's a good take, but that's not why they're being cancelled. In fact, they give us exactly why these things are being cancelled. They say they are now taught less frequently because these novels are dated and problematical in terms of decolonizing.
What's that word?
No, not really. Not according to my spell checker on here, anyway. They do put sick next to it to show that this wasn't their mistake. In terms of decolonizing the curriculum, their lead characters are not people of color. That's their reason. The lead characters are white.
So use the N-word all you like, but don't make the lead character a white guy.
Yes,
Alright.
that's their concern. Specifically with To Kill a Mockingbird, they're also talking of Mice and Men, which has the N word in it. The representation of people of color is dated. Yes, it's an old book. It's part.
Did you know 300? Their representation of Spartans is a bit dated.
Actually, it's a bit too modern.
Well, it'd be a representation of Greeks, I should say. But
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know.
It doesn't represent Greek life now. No, I suppose it doesn't.
Movies of medieval England represent English people in a bit of a dated way.
Yeah,
As if they're from the medieval
Henry
times.
V has Henry riding on a horse.
Oh, why does he drive a car?
English people rarely ride on horses these days. 97% of English people ride cars. Well, anyway, so the representation of coloured people people of colour, is dated, and the use of the N-word and the motif of the white saviour in Mockingbird, these have led us as a department to decide that really these are not texts we want to be teaching in third year anymore. Okay, but maybe you should resign and let teachers who don't want to erase the history of Scotland and the indigenous people's culture of Scotland take over.
Or just insane people who can't
Yeah.
fathom the idea that a book is old.
And I just want to be clear, that doesn't necessarily mean white people. That just means people who aren't antithetical to Scotland and Scottishness.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, like, be white to like Scotland. You know, lots of white people don't like Scotland. Lots of Scots don't like Scotland. So I'm going to move on. Anyway, and this just keeps going, right? Like, the wokeness is everywhere, and it's gross. And everything it does, everything it touches, it just turns into rubbish, right? This is the Deliveroos alphabet soup can with a rainbow flag on it. And, of course, it's got the letters LGBTQQIAAP. They're the only letters in it. Because pride.
Why 2 Q's and 2 A's?
I have no idea.
Okay. And you can see there it's not just the rainbow flag, it's the racial pride flag rather than the traditional conservative flag of pride. Where it has the black and brown stripe to represent black and brown people in a separate but equal fashion.
Yeah, but what's that P doing on the end?
Yeah, I don't know.
What does the P stand for? Deliveroo, whatever you call it.
But also, you're a food delivery company.
Sure, but what's the P? What does the P stand for? I really want to know.
I've heard people argue it's pansexual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard it's something else.
I don't even know what that means, though, so...
It means you will literally have sex with anything.
There's no intersex logo on the flag. Correctly pointed out, John.
Good point. They must be deliberately excluding intersex people.
They've got an I there. Presumably that's what intersex.
Possibly, but if they exclude them from the flag, I'm happy to chalk that up to them hating intersex people. Anyway, moving on. Woke Raytheon. The meme has come to life. The bombs that will be dropped on foreign countries, on black and brown people around the world, will definitely have a Black Lives Matter fist and a trans pride flag painted on them, because the second largest defense contractor in America is apparently imposing an anti-racist program using critical theory, arguing that white or straight Christian men should identify their privilege, participate in reparations, and decolonize their bookshelves. This cancer is everywhere. It's literally everywhere, and it can't be stopped.
Could you imagine being ISIS and getting bombed? Like,
yeah.
To be honest, it's almost kind of mocking.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be that, like, the Greek slingers used lead bullets, right, about this big, and on them they'd inscribe something like "catch this" or "take that" or whatever. And now it's Black Lives Matter.
You know, when they used to put get effed or freedom on it. I mean, that would be a good mockery, and you're bombing ISIS with the words freedom written on it. But if you've got written on it
trans rights
or the racial pride flag, it's almost like you're kind of justifying the opposition to the United States there.
Yeah, if one of the bombs falls and it doesn't blow up, they're just going to be like, see?
Like, you're bombing the Russians, and the Russians just turn to the Ukrainians and show them the bomb and be like, is this what you're fighting for?
Exactly. So this program is titled Stronger Together. Yes, that's right, Stronger Together, by persecuting the white people. Raytheon CEO Greg Hayes supported the campaign by signing an Action for Diversity and Inclusion statement, promising to promote diversity and cultural meaningful change in our society. Aren't you meant to be defending the society rather than changing it? But, anyway, so, excuse me. So, what's his name? Rufo. Some chap called Rufo. I can't remember his first name. It's Christian Rufo, something like that.
It's Chris Rufo.
Chris Rufo, that's it. Went on Tucker Carlson and explained they launched this really, really political indoctrination program, teaching employees to judge each other on the basis of race, asking employees actually to identify one another on the basis of race during their conversations. Wow, that sounds awful. They provided specific rules for white employees, how to speak to black employees, presumably which fountains they're supposed to use to get their drinking water from. And they even said that the employees should reject the principle of equality in favor of equality of outcomes, which is a synonym for socialism, maybe communism.
Oh, God, I can't get over the idea in my head that they're like, yes, when you're addressing a white employee, you should say, "Oh, Mr. Smith." But when you're addressing a black employee, use their first name. They don't deserve accreditation.
Well, it's that, but in reverse.
Oh.
But like I said, they've doubtless got their own water fountains, so it's okay. Separate but equal, I believe, is the Raytheon position on this.
Well, I presume they're using the flag as well. I think they did change their logo for Pride and did use the racial flag. So they do believe in separate but equal black people. What else is that on the flag?
It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I can't believe that I'm still amused by all this. It's really astonishing because this is one of the largest corporations in the world, and of course, defense manufacturer. So that's awful. Thanks for bringing back racial workplaces and segregation. But I guess it gets worse. On the alphabet soup can, they didn't have a Z at the end.
What?
Zoophiles.
People who like having sex with animals.
Yes. Disgusting perverts or just misunderstood? Ask Russia Today. Meet the zoophiles who have sex with animals and want to be embraced by pride. It never gets better. It never, ever gets better.
I can already hear their argument in my head, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's disgusting.
Well, go on. What's the argument?
Well, it's because, the typical thing you'd say, well, you can't have an animal consent. And I bet $1 million that they're going to be like, yeah, but what if it's a woman and she just bends down in front of a dog? And the dog does it, they're consenting. And the leftists will have no rebuttal on this. You'll have to default to the right-wing position of being like, yeah, that's disgusting.
Yes. So zoophiles believe it's acceptable to be intimate with an animal and want the LGBTQ plus movement to add Z to its name. Russia Today spoke to one of them who very few would talk, and this person was someone called Toggle, who said that they would speak to Russia Today on this because of their dissatisfaction at how zoophiles are portrayed in the media. I'm surprised it hasn't been very accepting, frankly. I imagine The Guardian's got a bunch of op-eds in favour of them. He was adamant they cannot be excluded from Pride, no matter what the masses say. Zoophiles are quintessentially queer, he says, but if you think Pride is a social event that you can be uninvited from, you misunderstand it on a fundamental level. Pride is a protest. Pride is about defiance against the society that doesn't want you to exist. And as you know, love is love.
Love is love. That's the phrase.
How are you going to keep them out, Pride organisers? Some people may have forgotten that, but I haven't. So people can say things on Twitter like zoophiles aren't welcome at Pride, but they can't stop us from participating. Pride isn't something other people can take away from you unless you let them. Toggle is apparently attracted to male dogs, boars, stallions, and mares. Although he's not zoo exclusive, he is also attracted to humans. They don't say that he's subscribed to Vorsh, but I'm just going to assume he is.
Sorry. Oh, God. To say zoophiles are queer, that's all what being queer is about. Well, there we go. I mean, there we have
That's what Pride's about,
Well, no, Douglas Murray is completely correct. There are homosexuals who are just gay, and that's their life, and that's the end of it.
And then there's this.
And then there's the zoophile leftists.
And so we covered the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Yesterday, they said that they were coming for your children, which is probably true, especially as it turns out that a bunch of people on the internet were checking around and, oh yeah, that's right, at least one of them appears to actually be a registered sex offender for having conducted lewd or lascivious acts with a child under 14. I only saw this one floating around.
I believe he's not the only one. I saw some others in which some other people were picked out, but I can't verify them.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more. What a shock. I posted this on Getter, so go follow me on Getter, just at Carl Benjamin, and follow loadeaters_com on Getter and all of our other social media networks, obviously. But anyway, so this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that China is just like, no. Just no. That's it. Because on WeChat, they've just erased all of the LGBT accounts. Just no. Just no.
Wait, so gay accounts or LGBT accounts?
LGBT.
Right. I don't know much about Chinese homophobia. My understanding is it is a very homophobic place in general.
Well, I imagine so, yeah.
Against gays, not necessarily queers as we're defining them. So I don't know the situation, but
Pride flags on WeChat? We don't think so.
But that's the thing. I mean, if you want gay toleration around the world, well, in a country like China that isn't, well, what are they going to see when they look to the West? And do you really think that's helping?
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine that this was uninformed by leftist Westerners, this decision. I mean, so dozens of these accounts, mostly run by university students, were deleted on Tuesday night, sparking fears of a tightening control over gay content. The closures have garnered a wave of online support for the LGBT community, with many asking student groups to hang in there and do not give up. It's like, hanging in what? It's been deplatformed, roundly deplatformed. But others welcomed the move, saying that it was about time that they were silenced. What's it like to have the shoe on the other foot, you... Hey? What's it like? What's it like when the power structures are actually against you and not your enemies? So when you're going, oh yeah, very good, deplatforming all those Nazis that we hate, whether they are Nazis or not, obviously. In China, it's the other way around. It's like, sorry, don't have to have LGBT representation on our social media, so we won't. Gone. Yep. Suck it. That's what it is.
Same with Soviet Union, though. It's just like the wave of people who define themselves as queers and then get interested in socialism. It's like, don't you know... These things don't go together.
Yeah, do you think they like queers over in the Soviet Union? Anyway, China decriminalized homosexuality in 1997, but the LGBT community continues to face discrimination. And on Wednesday, at least 2 LGBT student groups issued statements in response saying, oh, please don't censor us. Our activities will not stop due to the closure. On the contrary, we hope to use this opportunity to start again with a continued focus on gender and society, to embrace courage and love. They want to wokeify China.
I mean, if there's one way of destroying it, that'll do it.
Exactly.
Should we send them $10 million for gender studies programs?
I think we should send them more. Meanwhile, I can't pronounce half of this, but another student university group said it was frustrated that years of hard work have been burned in one go. Don't say based, don't say based, don't say based. And these are 2 of China's top educational institutions. The US State Department was like, oh, we're concerned that their accounts have been deleted. Really? Not concerned that a sitting president was deplatformed by Silicon Valley, but a bunch of agitators in communist universities. You're like, oh, well, what about their free speech? Unreal, but of course...
Because again, you completely lose your moral high ground, like when you engage in this sort of thing, and then abroad. I mean, you take this with just... it's a perfect example. They're like, yeah, well, what about censorship in other countries? You do platform the president in a cabal situation. Yeah.
And then you wrote an article in Time magazine bragging about it. Like, sorry, I got no sympathy at all. So yeah, other Chinese social media users did celebrate this, of course. I don't mind if the LGBT community quietly does their own thing, but why do they have to keep shoving their ideals in my face through these groups? It's right to shut them down, said one person. Don't say based, don't say based, don't say based.
Well, I don't know what these groups are. Like, I'm always a bit suspicious when it comes to like China or Russia talking in this language, because...
They're leftist woke university groups.
Have you confirmed that?
Well, no, but that's what the BBC is saying.
Right, okay.
And I trust the BBC. Many of the closed WeChat accounts displayed messages saying they had violated internet regulations without giving further details. Oh, how does that feel? How does that... Oh, that must sting. That must fucking sting. You know, when you get deplatformed somewhere and you don't know what you did wrong and it's just like, no, out, we hate you. That's what it's like. Other account names have just been deleted and raid unnamed. How does it feel? After receiving relevant complaints, all content has been blocked and the account has been suspended, the notice said. Get what you deserve. Hungary is taking all of this quite far, though. They've decided to fine a bookshop over a picture book depicting LGBT families. So the picture book, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, is a Hungarian translation combining 2 titles by a US author, Lawrence Schimmel, and illustrator Elena Braslina. Early One Morning, which shows a young boy's morning with his 2 mothers, and Bedtime Not Playtime, in which a young girl with 2 fathers is reluctant to go to sleep. Reuters report that they were fined about £600, and the local authority, blah, blah, blah. The Pest County Commissioner told television station, again, all these names I'm not going to try and pronounce, that it had violated the rules on unfair commercial practices by failing to clearly indicate that the book contained content which deviates from the norm.
And we have no authority in the UK to criticise them at all, because Count Dankula was fined £800 for a meme.
Yeah. Well, look at deplatforming To Kill a Mockingbird.
Like,
why?
But I mean, in this case, it's a fine. But it's like, oh no, how can Hungary find things that they find offensive? We do. We do in this
we
country.
actually find Dankula more than they find this bookstore, incidentally. But the book was among other fairy tale books and thus committed a violation, Tanai said. There is no way of knowing that this book is about a family that is different than other than normal family. And Schimmel wrote on Twitter that the Hungarian government is trying to normalise hate and prejudice with these concerted attacks against books like mine, which represents kids in the plural and diverse world they live in. I mean, it's a very marginal position.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, if we were to add up all the families, how many of them have heterosexual parents and how many of them have gay parents?
Yeah.
And you'll find less than 1% are being represented in these books. Of course, the EU is not happy about this. Ursula von der Leyen has decided, no, you're going to become gay or you're going to feel the full force of the law. It's like an anti-China covering Europe.
I'm reminded of the meme. There's an image of, I think it's like a Russian riot policeman who's been attacked. And he's got like blood on him, and then he's got like a thing, and there was a pride flag behind him. So it's like the last straight man in 2019.
Well, so
I don't know what was going on in that situation, but it's just the meme is funny.
So yeah, the European Union is basically turning into a sort of negative photograph of China. They're both governed in the same way, but for different reasons. China's going to stop you being gay. They're going to make you go gay.
Well, not just gay with the EU.
Well,
It's
yeah,
wokeness left.
yeah, of course. I'm just joking. Yeah, so they are coming after Hungary. Speaking at the European Parliament on Wednesday, von der Leyen said that the law used the protection of children to discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation and proclaimed that Europe would never allow parts of our society to be stigmatized. Germany banned English travellers. Moving on. The critical race teacher literally banned Brits from going to Germany. Why? Because we're salty. That's why. Salty Germans. Their imperial project for the second time in like 200 years, the third time in 200 years, is falling apart.
Well,
anyway.
The 10th genocide?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so and the reason that this is all good, I mean, look at the way the response to critical race theory has been going. When it comes to teaching critical race theory, teachers should go on the offence with inquiry, according to Larry Ferlazzo, an English and social studies teacher at a high school in California. Just attacks on critical race theory and educators' efforts to teach about systemic racism are happening through the country. Teachers will share how they how they plan to respond to these attacks, and basically sum it up as go on the offence, teach it anyway, and go and complain on social media about it. So Republicans, just purge everything in your states. Everyone who seems to even be in defence of critical race theory, or like, well, I think there's something to this critical race theory, fired. Just fire them. Get rid of them. And if they're like, well, I'm going to teach it anyway, definitely get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go to a privately funded school and teach this nonsense,
sure,
go for it. State money, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything that is being funded with state money, just purge the lot. And so, yeah, it's like there is very clearly a worldwide culture war going on with wokeness and critical race theory, and the authoritarian regimes can see it for exactly what it is, and they're just going, no, we're shutting that down. And the woke authoritarians are going, no, you're going to be this, and we're going to be engaging in like a sort of French resistance, against the people who are not prepared to go along with the new regime. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.